my deepest honor to have this amazing guest here. There are certain people that I've met in life where it seems as if I've known them a long time, where spiritually, energetically, we just connect. And that is Darlene Greene. Welcome to the Power Transformation Podcast, Darlene.
Oh, it's such an honor to be with you, Alethea. Thank you so much. I feel the same, that we've just been kindred spirits from the moment we met.
We certainly have. And I'm so glad that we've connected. And your journey is remarkable, just with everything that you have transformed through. And you are so empowered. And we're going to jump into the more of who you are and what you do really soon. But first, I like to always start with a fun icebreaker question. And so, my question for you, Darlene, is we are now in summertime. But what is your favorite season of the year out of spring, fall, winter, and summer? And what's the reason for that being your favorite season?
Well, I live in Arizona, Alethea, so I will tell you, winter here is absolutely stunning. Walking outside in the morning and all day long, really, it's just spectacular. You can throw a sweatshirt on in the morning if there's a little chill in the air. We can play pickleball anytime during the day.
Mhm.
It's absolutely beautiful. It's green. It's luscious. The flowers are in bloom. And so I just think winter, because, and it's actually also a time where everyone's here. So, summer, a lot of your friends just dissipate. They leave town, they go off to their, Alaska retreat or some other location. Doctors actually do as well. There's a whole exodus from Arizona in the summer, and most people are looking for an opportunity to get out of the area. Having said
Yeah.
that, so I really love winter, and mostly because I just enjoy being outside.
Wow. And I've never been to Arizona,
Come
but
on
I can
down, Alethea. You've
imagine.
got a place to
I
stay.
will,
We'd love
I
to have
must.
you. I'll take you to
Thank you.
Sedona, which is just magical and one of my favorite places on the planet. If anybody hasn't seen it, you cannot go to Sedona and experience the mountains and the beautiful colors there and not just feel spiritual. It is just
Wow.
moving. It is so moving.
I believe you. That sounds glorious. And the fact that it's moving and it's beautiful, I would say the same for just everything that you're doing in your life and just the beautiful flow of how your life has gone. And we're going to get into that really soon. But if a person were to ask you this question, how would you respond? Who is Darlene Greene?
Um, a healer and a
Mm,
giver and a really dear friend.
wow. A healer. Wow, I love that. I absolutely love that. And over the years, you have healed people, yourself in so many different ways. And before we transition into more of your backstory of your transformational moments throughout your life, how would you describe what it is you do in that healing space? What do you do?
I really just share.
Mhm.
I do have a lot of extensive background knowledge now as a result of my own personal journey to educate myself to help not only my own health journey, but that of my husband. But I share technology that
Mhm.
changes people's lives, that changes their health emotionally, physically, that gives them hope, that gets them out of pain. And it is so intrinsically rewarding to be able to take someone out of pain, to help them immediately begin their journey into a better health. And so I absolutely love what I do. Now, I will say, actually, if you would have asked me 3 years ago who I was, I would tell you I'm a leader. I'm a strong leader. That was that's what I consulted on. I had 3 commanding officer jobs in the Navy. I was a vice president at McAfee. I was a dean of a boarding school. Lots of different titles and a lot of authority and a lot of positional power. And I love that. And I still do that. I'm still a director
Mhm.
of client services for a network and security company. However, my identity isn't wrapped up in that. My passion is taking care of people. I get to do that as a leader, but I really love doing that in the health space because I find that I think when I was going through my own journey, I felt very alone in my own 5 autoimmune disorders. When my husband was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, that's a very isolating experience. But
Hmm.
I found by being a part of an organization, a tribe, a community that is helping other people with health, I've opened up, I've become very vulnerable, very transparent, and shared. And in response to that, other people have shared. And I find that this is not an isolated event. Like almost everyone I know is dealing with something. And it doesn't have to be them. It could be a spouse, it could be a parent, it could be a child. But the whole world is in need of more energy, better sleep, just improved emotional or physical health. And to be able to assist in that is an honor.
I agree with that, in that everybody is experiencing and going through something. And sometimes people can feel as if they are isolated and alone, but we do have commonalities in that it might not be my struggle, it might not be your
Right.
struggle, but we all go through and experience something. And the fact that you've come to transform that pain into purpose and power speaks volumes. But I'm curious as to know, Darlene, from the beginning, let's go back to before your health challenges. Who was Darlene back then in terms of what were you passionate about and what was life overall like for you before your health challenges?
Yeah, I was a really successful kid, really
Mm.
successful in high school, president of the National Honor Society, many, many letter jacket athlete in lots of different sports, very competitive with not just women, but men as well. I loved sports. I loved academics. I loved school. I thrived in all of those. I was a very good kid, very straight laced, didn't get in
Uh,
trouble, you know,
uh-huh.
just always thought people who are getting in trouble are, why? I don't understand why. You just ask permission, but I led such a straight laced life that my parents gave me a lot of latitude. I didn't drink. I really lived a very clean life. Through college, I also had a great college experience. It was humbling. Went to University of Virginia. I had been such a strong student in high school. It was a really great experience to be with brilliant people there. Um, went through the Navy ROTC program there, so was commissioned an ensign the weekend I graduated.
Wow.
Also got married that weekend, which was it was a big weekend. Um,
Yeah.
what I would tell you, I wasn't educated on Alethea, and if I could go back and change anything or teach anyone, like one
Mhm.
of the most important life lessons I think you could possibly have is I didn't really understand about the animal brain. I didn't understand to listen to the hairs on the back of my neck when they stood up. I didn't trust my gut instinct. And if I had, I would have never married my first husband. I
Wow.
wouldn't have actually married my second husband. Both
Wow.
were narcissists, both were emotionally and physically abusive, and I missed it. I overwrote the red flags in my brain, or in the back of the animal brain, with my prefrontal cortex that just said, "Well, there's no evidence for that." And now looking back on it, I could have saved myself not only, I think, a significant number of health challenges, but also
Mhm.
a lot of lost joy, to be quite
Mm.
honest.
Wow. Lost joy, that is powerful because we think about losing other aspects of our life, but when you realize that you've lost joy, that takes it to another level, totally and completely. Because when you lose your joy, I would think that hope can be lost that way, faith can be
Yeah.
lost. You're just kind of going through the motions of things. And that does take its toll on your overall health and wellness and your well being. And what I want to ask you, kind of going back, and we're definitely going to talk about how you pivoted and left out of those marriages, but I want to go back to something for a moment. You mentioned how very active you were academically, athletically, ended up joining the military, everything. And so you mentioned that you were active and athletic in those earlier years, but how how did that lifestyle, in your opinion, how did that shape your overall relationship with health and well-being as you were growing up?
I would say the activity. I think when you are an athlete,
Hmm.
you are feeding your body what is needed. You are
Hmm.
drinking water. You aren't sabotaging your body. You're looking at the next competition, or you are just thinking of health very differently than a
Hmm.
non-athlete does. And
Hmm.
and I was really good. Like right out of the Navy, I won the East Coast Navy-wide racquetball championship for the East Coast, and I won
Wow.
athlete of the year for my base. And I did mini triathlons, and I mean, I just tried. I dabbled in this,
Mhm.
I dabbled in that. I got into racquetball. I did tennis. I you know swam. I did a lot of different things very well, but I wasn't doing them. I did them for fun. Like I enjoyed those things. But I
Mhm.
but I will tell you, the health issues that came about as a result of the challenges, if anyone's ever lived with a narcissist or been in a marriage with a narcissist or someone that's emotionally or physically abusive, you don't connect the dots at the
Mhm.
time. I didn't connect the dots with either of those for a decade. Like, migraines and
Wow.
fainting and lost a thyroid through the first marriage, and in the second one, five autoimmune disorders, right? So, but it took it actually took somebody outside of the situation, a doctor, who said, well, of course you have chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia, Darlene. You're married to a narcissist. Duh. Like
Mm.
it was really like, oh, it had never occurred to me that the stress of my life was impacting my health. I was sort
Wow.
of oblivious to that connection for a really long time. And he actually recommended, and I have to give a plug to Candace Pert, who wrote the book Molecules of Emotion, because at the time when the doctor said, you need to read this book, I will tell you, I was burning the candle at both ends. I was
Mm.
struggling through the second divorce. I was trying to take care of two babies, and I was trying to be a superstar Navy commander, right? And and in the reading of that book, I learned, like, this will kill you. Like,
Mhm.
there is such a strong connection that the stress of all of this will kill you. And then my kids would be left without a mom. So I
Yeah.
I had to rethink everything I had, instead of plugging through and charging, and you're tough and you'll push through and you just keep going at it. I had to stop and say, oh, I need to introduce self-care. I actually need
Mm.
to meditate. I need to exercise no matter what, or just walk or do the stress relieving exercises that can keep me sane through this. And I need to really, in the midst of chaos and all of the activities of my life at the time, I need to prioritize me. And moms don't do that very well, and women don't do that very well. But it was this book that made me go, all right, you got to do this, and you got to do it right now.
Mm. You know what I'm curious about, and you are dropping some gems here. But what I'm curious about is listening to your achievements growing up and seemingly well put together overall in terms of what you wanted out of life, how you wanted it. You sound like so many people I know, so many women I know specifically. And I share that because I think that even sometimes the best of us, and I say us because I was in a relationship in the past with a narcissist. In fact, two of them, until I decided to break the pattern also. And a person may wonder, how in the world do you get involved like that? And it can be very easy to be deceived, even when you are sharp in other aspects of your life. So, my question for you is, at what point did things begin to shift physically, emotionally, or relationally for you, Darlene? And what were those early, deeper signs that something was happening beneath the surface that you needed to really reclaim in terms of your sense of identity?
Yeah, I would tell you, as in the very first marriage, I don't think I knew how bad it was until I got out. So it wasn't until the physical abuse that I began the exit strategy, right? I mean, I knew that wasn't going to get better. It was just going to get worse and worse. And it was,
Mm-hmm.
and so I began my path out. But I actually was outside of it looking back when I realized all the emotional abuse, and I realized actually how much of myself I had lost. Someone asked me, well, what do you like to do? And I thought, gosh, I haven't thought about what I like to do in this number of years because I've been following what he wanted to do all the time.
Yeah.
So, I knew from the beginning when I wasn't being treated well, this is not okay and this isn't right. And I have the fortune of having had beautiful role models as
Mm-hmm.
parents. I have a gorgeous marriage. My dad is the epitome of integrity and character and just a beautiful human being.
Mm-hmm.
It never dawned on me that men lied or that they weren't respectful or that they were so manipulative and deceitful. So I kind of was incredibly naive, which is part of how you get into these situations. And again, ignoring my red flags. In the second one, though, I will tell you that I would have stuck that out as long as I physically could have for the sake of my daughters
Mm-hmm.
if I didn't think it was going to kill me. And it really was at the point in time when I thought, I'm not going to survive this. I mean, I remember thinking, women, they carry their babies across deserts and through mountain ranges, and surely I can just survive this one man. Like, no one's shooting at us. We have a roof over our head. Like, how bad can it be?
Mm-hmm.
Yet, day after day, I would find myself so worked up, so angry, so um, shocked by the grotesque boundary violations and disrespect that I realized that the situation was untenable.
Wow.
So it took all right. There's really no choice here. You have to get out and you have to figure out how to get out. Because again, I know there are people in narcissistic relationships who don't necessarily know what's better or that they deserve better, but I always did know that. I knew it from marriage one and I knew it from marriage two. And in each case, I'm like, wow, they do not represent who they really are before marriage. And then after marriage, you're in it. And now you're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, let's figure this out. And initially I thought, well, this is got to be fixable. We'll go to marriage counseling. I'll read lots of books. I'll figure out how to make this relationship work. And after
Mm-hmm.
multiple therapists said, yeah, narcissistic personality disorder is not fixable. And your best strategy is actually to get out of the relationship altogether.
Yeah.
Because it is only damaging to you and to the girls. And it was, I mean, I don't talk about the girl's story, but I will say
Of
this,
course.
that the boundary violations were enough that CPS was involved, and what they would call abuse, the judge called felony bad judgment. So
Oh.
we had very serious situations going on that caused a huge protective mama bear to come out to protect
Mm-hmm.
our babies. And at some point I realized it was the best interest of the children,
That's
actually.
right. Yeah, that's right. And that's love. And that's what a mom does. I'm
Yeah.
not a mom, but I have such a loving mom. I have a wonderful dad too, just like you, but it's something about moms I've heard where you don't come after our babies and they
That's
will do
right.
everything they can to
That's right.
protect their children. And so I like that also because more things with kids are caught than taught. I worked with kids for over 20 years, and more things are caught than taught. They'll see things and are ever so presently watching, even if they're really young, all the way up until they're older. But
Mhm.
with you too, it's just not the other people around you who are hearing what's happening or seeing what's happening. But our body is such a complex, masterful, wonderful machine, and our body can actually take on the stress, the conditions, and the circumstances that we are experiencing, even from how we think, how we speak. Now, this is my background coming out in holistic health, but it's proven, as you know, about what we carry and our emotions can manifest into our body. And so, how did the chronic stress and emotional strain, Darlene, how did it begin to manifest in your body? And what toll did it take that others may not have even seen?
Yeah, I think we underestimate dramatically what chronic stress does. I liken it to a chronic dripping faucet all over your nervous system, where eventually
Mm,
it floods the house and slowly it really kills you. And it's interesting, there's a statistic that is kind of shocking to me that 75 to 90% of people who go to a healthcare facility actually go because of stress, psychological or
really?
emotional stress. 75 to
That's a
90%.
lot. I
That is,
never heard that.
that is a really shocking statistic. And I think we often carry chronic stress as a badge of honor, like we work long hours or we worked all these long days or I haven't gotten any sleep, right? We carry that like it's a badge of honor. And I really think that we underestimate how damaging it is. And so for me, it was migraines, it was lost thyroid, and then it became just excruciating fatigue and illness all the time, chronic fatigue syndrome, then fibromyalgia. I mean, there was not a trip I went on where I wasn't sick. We went on a family vacation to Hawaii for 2 weeks. I was in bed 12 of the 14 days.
What?
One year I
Oh,
was on 12, no, 14. I was on 14 antibiotics in 1 year. I mean, I was just sick and sick all the time. And um, it was also then fainting, POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia, which is basically not getting enough blood to the brain and you
mm,
pass out. And at one point, I was actually grounded for 2 weeks where I couldn't drive because they needed to figure out how do we keep Darlene upright without her passing out and knocking her head on the bathtub or the jam on the wall. And
mm.
and it also, I will also say this, there was anxiety. I was seeing a therapist regularly to try to decompress and deal with the trauma, which there was. I had PTSD. That was a lot. I never considered that I would ever have PTSD. I wasn't on a battlefront. I wasn't in
Uh-huh.
Afghanistan. All of my military brethren that had PTSD had been there, right? So getting PTSD from your Navy SEAL husband or the court system of the lack of control when you're trying to protect your children, that was not something that I had. And so the first time a therapist said to me, "You have PTSD," I was just like, "Wait, what?" So a lot of those kinds of things, there were other little
Mm,
things like rosacea or issues but really I was just exhausted.
mm.
Absolutely. If you would have asked me, Alethea, we're gonna pay for any vacation anywhere in the world, where would you go? Could you just put me in a hotel room with blackout curtains and can I sleep for a week? Like just
Oh,
uninterrupted sleep. That's all I really want.
hey, that is extreme.
Yeah.
That's extreme. And I know that you mentioned that this mama bear part of you came out where you knew you had to protect your children. But was there another reckoning or breaking point in your life, Darlene, where you said enough is enough, something has to change in my marriage and in my health?
Yeah. I mean, if it would be almost impossible to describe the ridiculousness of the battles that we held daily in my house.
Mm,
And the nonsensical arguments that would come back from him, um, things that, you know, were so insane. We're on a vacation in Hawaii together, and he's sending emails to my Navy email that are like sexual in nature. But all of my
Mhm.
emails getting forwarded to my boss. It's like there's an out of office bouncing back that says, I'm out of office and everything's going to, you're not allowed to use the email for personal use. And here he is. So, conversations be like, are you trying to get me fired? What are you doing? And after telling him 3 times to stop, it continued. So that
Mhm.
level of really inane disregard and, I mean, violations of my personal, sending medical photographs of me to my boss,
Yes.
unacceptable. Like just things
Oh
that were
my gosh.
not for sharing a full video of a birth of a child when I had said no videotaping. And not only did he videotape under the curtain, but he mailed the videotape unbeknownst to me to his sister, his parents, my parents, a video I hadn't even seen. And my mom called and said, Darlene, like we should not see this. And I'm like, what are you
Yeah.
talking about? So, the disrespect, and it's probably still to this day a bit of a hot button. Respect is probably a hot button because of
Mm.
the experience of constantly being bombarded with
Mhm.
absolutely infuriating behavior that just spun me up, right? And just made me argue about like, what are you thinking? I managed the finances, and one day he just like took out $15,000 and paid off a car. And I'm like,
Oh,
wait, I don't even know if we can, like, I don't know that the checkbook's going to balance. And he goes, no, I checked the ATM. I'm like, you're a double engineer. Like you've got 3 master's degrees. You got to know that that's not how this works.
that's right.
It was just, he had an ulterior motive because, and so we fought about that. And then a month later, he did the same thing again. Like there was just these kinds of crazy making things that I just was like, this,
Enough.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
I'm going to just implode.
Enough is enough is
Yeah.
enough. Wow. That is, oh wow. That is absolutely
I didn't even
astonishing.
know the term gaslighting at the time. Now I do,
Uh-huh.
but at the time I didn't know
Yeah.
anything about narcissists early on until a therapist
Mhm.
said, "Oh, we've got to say, check, check, check." He filled all the criteria. So
Yeah,
I really didn't know, but I was constantly being gaslit.
exactly. And that term, even with narcissists, I think in some cases, not yours, but some people overuse it and just say, oh, they're narcissists. But then there's some people like you who've lived it and really know what it is to experience true narcissism.
Yeah,
And there are a lot of people out there who are, but what I'm saying is that sometimes I've found myself in spaces where a person will just loosely use the
sure,
word,
sure.
and I'm saying, no, that's not necessarily a narcissist.
It's a buzzword now.
It's a buzzword now. A lot of these things are buzzwords, and people like you and I who have been, you have known about narcissism now for a while. I've known about mindset and mindfulness for a long time now, and a lot of these are buzzwords. But one thing I think that is such a truly incredible part of your story, and you didn't tell me all of the details, but you did tell me, Darlene, and I'm taking a shift here, about an experience you had um, through a conversation with your hairstylist. And
Oh,
that
yeah.
set you on a road to somewhere that you could never have imagined. So,
Yeah.
audience, I want you to really listen and pay attention to this. A conversation through your hairdresser, out of all people. What did that moment
Yeah.
do for you, spark in you, and what unfolded next
Yeah.
in your journey on your road to health?
Yeah. Well, let me take a step back and set
Yes.
context. And that's that, after husband 1 and 2, I was never going to date again. I obviously my picker is broken. But through the community of friends that I had, they kept doing these group events and kind of setting up this guy named Jim Green and I. And over the course of time, we began to date, and I actually trusted my animal brain in this case. And he literally parted the dark clouds and brought in the sunshine, and was ultimately, we became married and had the most blissful marriage imaginable. It was absolutely, to this day, the best marriage of anyone I know. It was
Wow.
really lovely. And somewhere, actually 14 years in, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Heartbreaking. 64 years old, right?
Mm.
Not on our radar at all. And that launched this deep dive for me into, okay, we're going to fix this, right? I'm an educated woman. I can do research and I'm going to find the answers. And we did everything from hyperbaric chamber and pulse electromagnetic frequency and microcurrent and ozone therapy and change the diet and exercise. And I mean, you name it, we did it, including going out of country 4 times for stem cells via IV and injection for
Wow.
both him and for me, because I was doing all of these things to try to get well myself. And in the course of this journey, we really were at a place in time where Jim's decline was it was substantial. He was at a place where he
Mm.
was a zombie and a shell of his former self. He was napping the day away, really 3.5 hour naps, and he was no longer really engaging in conversation. So I had really lost him. He was no longer his personality, which was to always be funny. If he was talking, he was trying to be funny, and he was not even trying to be funny anymore. So my
Mm.
hairdresser, who listens to me, every 6 weeks, talk about what's going on in the decline, and she says, Darlene, I know this sounds crazy, but there is a technology that my friend is talking about that has changed their life and that it can actually help you optimize your body's cells, master foundational cells and beyond by regenerating and repairing them and tapping into the body's innate intelligence. And
Mm.
it's very affordable. It's really simple. And I said, sure. I mean, out of desperation, I had zero belief, but I had nothing to lose. And I was like, I'll try anything. And so we began, so I got in, and honestly, I just pressed the I believe button. I didn't know there were 120 studies. I didn't know this was in 82 countries. I didn't know anything about it. I just did it. We just both did it. But what we saw in literally the first week was unbelievable. And this is someone who'd spent, 2 years really working through all of these approaches and never seeing a single solitary thing make a difference. And in the first week, Jim didn't nap at all. He became very engaging and
Wow.
talkative. He didn't ask me the same question 7 times in 2 minutes. He was back trying to be funny. He didn't always get the right word, but he was trying to be funny, and I could see that. And he was back to his fun and flirty personality.
Mm.
And over time, even other things, he got back the ability to whistle and drum, and even got back
Mm.
his sense of smell after having lost it 20 years before, which, by the way, Alethea, not many people may know this, but that's an early warning indicator for Alzheimer's. By the time you actually
Mm.
get diagnosed with Alzheimer's, you have had it for 20 years. And if we were to go back, it actually was the first signal was the loss of sense of smell. So
Mm.
we just had his this amazing thing for him, and then there was me. So for me, by the time my hairdresser introduced me to this, I had a broken foot. I had been multitasking coming down the staircase, missed the last 3 steps, broke my foot, sprained my ankle. Now I'm in a situation where my husband can't even get a cup of water, and I'm hobbling around on crutches waiting
Oh
for surgery.
no.
And I will tell you, that was a pretty deep low. I was depressed. I was
Mm.
very depressed, and I'm dealing with pain on top of all the other things. And I'm an exhausted care provider who hasn't forgotten Candace Purd's words of wisdom around taking care of yourself. But I will say it's hard to work a job and take care of a spouse that's got Alzheimer's and find time in there somewhere to take care of yourself. Um,
Oof.
but I had 4 different doctors stop me in my tracks and say, Darlene, the care provider often goes first. And
Yep.
I said, wait, what do you mean? And they said, well, the care provider dies first 50% of the time. And I was just like, holy moly. So that's why I was trying to do all of these things myself as well. And I will tell you from the moment I began the technology, um, I stopped having migraines after 35 years of them. I no longer had any symptoms of the chronic fatigue syndrome or fibromyalgia. That was like 23 and 26 years of
Mhm.
those. I stopped passing out and fainting. Um, no more, and these are things that are you're told by every doctor. These aren't treatable. They're not curable. There's nothing we can do. Sorry. And I didn't pass out ever again, and I have no symptoms of POTS again.
My gosh.
My rosacea, I have no symptoms of rosacea. My broken foot, I got out of pain right away. So and my depression lifted within 2 to 3 weeks. It was the most extraordinary thing. So you can imagine right out of the gate, I'm like, mom, dad, sis, cuz, auntie, you guys you're not going to believe this. Like, this is the most remarkable technology, and it's super affordable, and it's changing our lives.
Mhm.
And then I got to watch them and their lives change, and absolutely remarkable things change for them. And so it, it, com- it completely transformed my life. Now, I will say, Alethea, for all of the improvements that it did for my husband,
Mhm.
just didn't start early enough. So I know but for your audience, he passed away in March this year. The decline continued, although the things that improved stayed. Like, he stayed his personality, stayed his funny, flirty self almost all the way to the very end.
Wow.
And I'm incredibly grateful for that quality connection that we had, that we did not have. I mean, I had an extra year and a half of Jim that I did not and would not have had without that. So
Mm.
really, really incredible.
Wow. And how old was he when he actually passed?
68.
Gosh. Mm. And he was diagnosed at 64.
He had
Right.
early Alzheimer's, and it's more aggressive. And he had the gene type from both parents. He had
Oh.
ApoE4, so which makes it even worse.
Mm. Wow. What a love story. I mean, the fact that you had him and your grief is still very fresh, because when we're doing this is June of 2025. So it's only been approximately 3 months. And just for you to be present and to share your journey when it's so fresh, and everybody grieves differently, there's no right or wrong way. But the fact that you're still devoted to helping people and sharing about Jim and your love and how you healed your body as well is quite remarkable. And it leads me to wonder, Darlene, how important, why is it critical, but more so, how important is it for people to invest in their health?
Yeah, I am a strong believer that we're not meant to live life exhausted. We're not meant to live in quiet suffering. We're really meant to shine, and we're meant to serve,
Mhm.
to feel
Mhm.
fully alive. And I don't think of investing in health as a luxury. I think it's the down payment on every dream that you
Mhm.
ever dared to chase. So I I don't think it's optional. I think you either make time for wellness and invest in it right now, or you're going to be forced to make time for illness
That's
later.
right.
And
Mhm.
and the ability to help other people through this has been salve to my soul. Alethea, I have had a woman who was 74 years old, Lindsay. She was on a scale of 1 to 10 on, what is your pain level? She said it's a 14. I said, how long has it been a 14? And she said, years. And I said, how are you living that way? And she said, I'm barely living.
Mm.
We applied the technology, and within 1 minute, all of her pain went away. She
What? Wait a minute.
one 1 minute, all of her pain went away.
1 minute?
She was basically teary. I talked to her a week later, and she was giddy happy. Her kids had been crying all week because she was out of the house and going to concerts and doing all these things that she hadn't done in years.
What?
And she said to me, Darlene, and this will choke me up, Alethea. She said, it is not an understatement to say that you have saved my life.
Mm.
Now, imagine having that kind of impact on people. And that's one example. Like, there are there's a woman who had a 10-year open oozing wound on her neck. And
Ooh.
they did years of antibiotic, and she had an abscessed cyst through her jaw that they basically said, look, we need to cut out the bottom 3 molars in your jaw, and we need to cut out the bone. And yeah, your face is going to collapse, but we'll try to do some structural reconstructive surgery to try to help you look a little more normal. And she's just like, no, no, no. We
Hmm.
applied the technology, and in 3 months, that open oozing wound closed up, the abscess went away, the lymph nodes went down to normal, and she had a little pink heart-shaped scar. And she would cry every time she talked to me and say, Darlene, you just don't understand how life-changing this is for me. It is so imagine it through this journey with Jim. This was the silver lining, and it not only kept me a little sane, and it gave me a way of taking the focus off of the woe is me and I'm so sad that I lost my best friend and partner for life. Instead, it helped me say, okay, Jim, Jim spent his life pouring love and laughter in the world. And the best way that I can honor his legacy is to pour love and laughter into the world, and to
Mm.
share the silver lining of his journey that we did discover together, to help other people and pay it forward, because I know there are people out there right now who are where I was. If I would have known right at the beginning about this technology, I think he would still be alive today. And I know that
Hmm.
there are people out here who don't know about this technology, even though it's so frustrating, because there's like hundreds of Olympians, Tom Brady, Serena Williams, Michael Phelps, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, I had a brain specialist that was helping Jim out, who went to Harvard and was summa cum laude. And I said, are you familiar with this technology? And she said, oh yeah, I love that technology. But did she ever bring it up to me? No.
No.
So I mean, it's just, I
Wow.
was so frustrated by the fact that in all my research, it never came up, and I didn't know about it until late by my hairdresser of all people. So
Yeah.
I mean, I just was mad, and it launched, like, I've done over 100 podcasts. At one point, I was a top 7 guests in the country, because
Hmm.
I just was like, people need to know about this, and they need to understand that there's hope. I mean, the ability to give and offer people hope is it's a passion and a mission of mine now.
And of course, and I'm just saying this, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm making an assumption, and I don't want to make this into politics, and I'm not talking party politics, but what I'm going to say is, and chances are this is not FDA approved, and we already know why.
So it's actually an FDA compliant technology in the
Is
wellness
it? Okay.
field. We try to stay out of the way of big pharma by not making
I
medical
got
claims.
you. Yeah,
So I
yeah. So,
stay out of so I don't use words like stem cell, even though we have a patent that says this
uh-huh.
activates your body's own stem cells and elevates them. I will say master foundational cells. I will say I don't have symptoms of this anymore. I can't say this
Exactly.
cured me. And I will tell you that, this is big pharma's biggest nemesis. There are doctors that say this is the most significant medical breakthrough in their lifetime. I have a
Mhm.
40-year anesthesiologist that said that. And it's because within a week, I've had people come off of their blood pressure medicine, or go half of their blood pressure medicine off. I've seen people drop cholesterol medicines, thyroid medicines. They no longer need insulin, or at least half the insulin. Their A1C drops. They lose weight. They don't need antidepressants or anti-anxiety medicines. They no longer have symptoms of PTSD. You name it. Oh, even autism. Children with very severe autism. I've seen a 16-year-old go from kindergarten to upper third, lower fourth grade in 5 weeks. In
Mhm.
15 days, no longer on their ADHD medicine ever again. Like, these extraordinary things. And so, yeah, yeah.
And and audience, just to clarify, the reason I said that is many people who know my health journey know that I have Western medicine doctors, but I also have a naturopathic doctor. And having this background in holistic health and wellness, we often find that more of these natural type of remedies, so as to speak, which actually have power and potency in them, we often find it doesn't go hand in hand with big, pharma. And so that's why I said that is, oh my goodness, how remarkable would it be if
Yeah.
everybody openly knew about this, but it would put those types of industries out of business. But that's a whole other conversation. That's something you and I can talk about offline, but that is the truth and the reality of it. And so, before we come to a close, I do have a couple of more questions to ask, but I want to pause here. And what I want you to do now, Darlene, is for people who are curious to say, what is this technology? What are they talking about? We agreed early on that due to the, I don't want to say privacy, but due to the exclusivity of this product and how you go about getting this, excuse me, this technology, um, Darlene is the person you would talk to one on one about it instead of asking me to post it and put a link. I'm going to give you, Darlene, the opportunity to share how people can contact you directly to learn just not more about your journey, but if they're curious and are saying, look,
Yeah.
something's got to give. I'm really curious about this. And what do you say to the person who says, I'm on a really fixed income? This probably does work, but it's probably tens of thousands of dollars that I can't afford.
Yeah. Excellent questions, Alethea. So first, um, I offer a gift consolation to people, a consultation that is really, um, I just don't charge for my time. I would like to help anybody who would like to meet with me. And so Alethea will have my Calendly and she can share that link and you're welcome to book time on my calendar. So it starts with connecting with me there. Um, the, when people figure out how dramatic the improvements are. When you look at any of the 120 clinical studies and see that, every 6 weeks, your brain actually becomes more coherent and it reduces brain inflammation and your memory and focus improves and cell and nerve regeneration and your anxiety is lowered. Or that every 6 weeks, the cardiovascular system begins functioning as if it's 8 weeks younger. I mean, these studies are phenomenal. Even within 24 hours, you can see clogged up red blood vessels and cells go from a big mess to beautiful and functional. We see so much, right? And so I I will tell you, I have a very dear friend who's a doctor. She's a pharmacist actually, and she researched this for 6 weeks before giving it to her daughter who had a brain bleed from a horse injury. She
Mm,
researched it thinking it was going to be like when we went out of country for stem cells, that was $20,000 per person per IV and injection. We did it 4 times in a year. Very expensive. And if you do anything with stem cells in the country, it's that expensive.
hmm.
This is less than a cup of coffee a day. Less than a
Never
cup of
heard of.
coffee a day. It is literally you can get the technology for $99 for a month. So I mean, if you have anything of significance, that is, and honestly, if you really can't afford that, um, I have a way of helping you afford that. Like there are ways of, let's talk about how you can lock arms with me as a business partner and we can figure it out
Mhm.
and we can get you there. Like we really
Yeah.
can. So there's really no one who can't get the technology. And that's part of the vision of the founder and the owner. By the way, the very first technology that was released 20 years ago was invented um, on behalf of the owner for U.S. Navy SEALs.
Hmm.
And so it improves mitochondrial function and energy. And it's just, there's so many things that we're capable of doing, reducing inflammation, elevating the body's glutathione, improving bone density, improving muscle and reducing fat, um, increasing collagen, which is the most abundant protein in your body. So
Mhm.
looking younger on the outside, but that's actually an outward reflection of the improvement of your organs on the inside. So
That's right.
even just there's a study we did with um everyone had needed knee surgeries, and there were the participants in the study, and using the technology in less than 3 months, none of them went on to have knee surgeries. They had actually regrown cartilage. So and I mean, there's all sorts of examples, and so
Exactly.
you see my excitement.
Yeah.
I it's the kind of thing that I do without getting paid. I will do consultations with the hope that that this changes your life. Um,
Yes. And if I may add, the reason why I stated it like that is, y'all, let's be honest, especially people, those of us who are either on a prescription. I used to be at one point in my life on 14 prescriptions when I was really, really sick. And I told my doctors, and this is what I loved about it. I told them, I said, my goal is to not be on this many prescriptions for the rest of my life, you know? So I weaned off of them. So for me, there are two specifically for Crohn's that I must take for now, although my doctor was trying to get me off of one, but the last study I had showed let's just try it again for another year. But I
mhm.
say that because there are people in our country who pay far more money every month for prescription drugs and supplements. And let me put this disclaimer, and I'll also have it. Darlene and I are by no means
Right.
saying get off of what
Right.
your doctor is
Right.
telling you to do. I'm
That's
going to put that out there. We are still wise women who are not going to say that. This can assist you and help you, but as with anything, talk to your doctor first. And what I love about Darlene, even with me, no, I'm not taking it, but I am interested. And I even told her, I said, look, I got to clear things with this person, that person. She's so open and confident, said, definitely tell them about it, show them about it. Because what I'm saying, you all, is over the years, I have been exposed to a world, especially through the naturopathic route, of certain supplements, and this isn't even that. She can tell you more about that. But my point is that your present life does not always have to be as it is. And I'm speaking for me, not Darlene. And what I'm trying to say to you is part of this podcast, the Power Transformation Podcast, is really thinking about no matter where you are in life, health challenges or not, there is so much power that we have within ourselves. And stress kills. Stress is a killer. And if there's something that maybe you want added support or relief from health wise, Darlene is the person to connect with. But again, I'm not saying give up everything you're supposed to do. We aren't doctors. We aren't telling you that, but to be open to possibilities of finding other ways to heal emotionally, physically, and everything else. And so I really appreciate you. Of course, we are going to talk more, but what would you say, Darlene? And you can answer it anyway as we come to a close. What would you say to someone who's simply overwhelmed by their own challenges? Maybe it's stress,
Yeah.
emotional exhaustion,
Yeah.
illness, and they don't know where to begin.
Yeah.
What would you tell them?
So I would, I think first of all, I can help. So let's
Mm,
just start with that. But even before that, um, I think illness is a little bit like grief. It can be like quicksand. You can just get sucked right in and you can live there forever.
mhm.
Like you could just stay there forever with no hope and no path out. No one being able to get you out of that quicksand of grief or illness. But But I have a real, I think that these illnesses and grief and these things can also be springboards that that you basically bounce out of into a future state and a forward. And so step one is believing that things can be different and know that
Yes.
they can be different. They absolutely can. And I think carving out time to make sure you get good sleep, to make sure you're meditating. I know a lot of people do, and a lot of people don't know anything about it. It is worth it is worth knowing about. Making sure you're eating food. I mean, it isn't just about you. Like you're one of many roles. You're maybe a daughter or a parent or a sister or a coworker or a care provider. Like you have all of these roles.
Hmm.
And I can personally tell you that the difference before and after for me, I was so much better as a care provider, as a daughter, as a sister. I mean, everyone said, I mean, unsolicited, my sister would say, God, you're just so patient and you're just happier and so much better to everyone. And my adult grown children said, Mom, you're just so wonderful. And, people
Mm.
everywhere began, it's amazing what you can do when you have energy, when you
Yeah.
feel good. I mean, it is like night and day. It felt like I'm a whole different human being
Yeah.
when you aren't sick and when you have energy and refreshed sleep and you aren't depressed and I mean, it's just phenomenal. And I think
Yes.
step one is belief. Know that there are alternatives. This is one of many. Don't give up. Don't quit. Don't just accept
Yes.
illness and say, "Oh well, this is what I have." My doctor friend I was telling you about, she was on the highest level of thyroid medicine ever prescribed, and she's a pharmacist. And she's like, "I was on the highest I've ever seen prescribed." And she would fall asleep driving her kids just 2 miles to school at a stoplight if she did
Oh,
not take her medicine. And do you know, in just a few months, she didn't need it anymore ever again. Like she has not had to take that now for 2 years. So
wow.
the things that you're doing to your body, and again, I agree 100% with Alethea. We're not telling you to get off your drugs, but
No.
what we are saying is all of those drugs have unintended consequences and side effects. And on top of that, they do not solve the root cause of the
Nope.
problem. They
They
are
don't.
just managing symptoms. And what we're talking about in this technology gets to the root cause and actually regenerates and helps your body optimize in a way that is just not possible any
Hmm.
other way that I'm aware of. I think it's the best thing in the world that you could ever do for yourself. I think it's the
Yeah.
best investment you could ever make. Otherwise I wouldn't be I if you would have looked at my social media 3 years ago, you would have found nothing. Oh, actually, two posts. When my daughter went to the Naval Academy, I posted, and when my daughter went to the Air Force Academy, I posted.
Hmm.
Other than that, you would know nothing about me. And only this journey and this technology has lit a fire in me that has made me say, "Oh, I'm gonna not only share that I was depressed, I had PTSD, I married narcissists, I had all these autoimmune." I
Yeah.
mean, that is a hard thing to actually go on to the world stage and admit. But I'm hopeful that in doing so, I inspire someone to understand that they don't have to be where they are. They don't have to be where they are. And there's a whole new world waiting out there. And
Mhm.
there's nothing that I've seen that it hasn't improved. Not like your body has innate wisdom and it knows how to heal itself. And we just get
Mhm.
a little extra help.
Yeah. And, one last thing I'll say to the audience, Darlene does this because she's experienced it, but also she believes in it. Sometimes you find charlatans or people who always have a gimmick or a scam. That's not Darlene. Trust me on this. Because when you've gone through something yourself and you speak and you know what it does and you have the results for it, that speaks volumes. And so even when she and I first connected, we just liked each other's spirits. And she wasn't pushy aggressive. She wasn't trying to sell me anything. It was genuinely a point. And even to this day, is no pressure. But it's like, hey, I'm willing to help you. You know, this is what can happen. Give it a try. And I'm a questioner. I ask a lot of questions, not because I don't trust, but I like to get information. And knowing my health journey ever since birth, I got to find out everything to a T.
Yeah.
And that's just how Darlene is. And she explained this to me because I was asking her, well, if I'm taking this, is it that? And she clarified, I'm not going to share that. But my point is that
Yeah.
even with me saying, why do you keep calling it a technology? She
Yeah.
explained it to me, and the way she explained it, I was like, oh, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm going to say about that. I would encourage you, whenever you're listening or watching this, connect with Darlene. And Darlene, we could talk forever. Of course, we are going to
Yeah.
still talk more as time goes on. But I want to thank you. It has been such an honor having you here on the Power Transformation podcast. And you are doing outstanding, phenomenal, life-changing work. And I'm so glad that you have gotten to this place and space, and you're doing it as you continue to heal and navigate through a challenging time in living this earthly life without your husband. But I am certain that wherever his spirit is, he knows, he has a sense of what you are doing here, and I know he's pleased. So thank you, my friend. And we, of course, are going to continue talking way down the road, even in the future and present and all that good stuff. But thank you again, Darlene.
Thank you, Alethea. Thank you for all that you do in the world, all the goodness that you put out, all of your avenues from speaking engagements to podcasts to all of it. You are making such a beautiful difference in the world, helping people become, I think, the highest versions of themselves, which is one of the greatest callings, is for us to really to reach for our potential and to strive towards that. And you help people get there. So I just love you to death. And thank you so much for all that you do. And thanks for having me on your amazing podcast.
Of course. And I love you too. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Power Transformation Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow or subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, and write a review. It helps us inspire even more listeners. And don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who could use a little power in their transformation. Until next time, keep bouncing back, keep rising, and be good to yourself and to others.